Revealed, the incredible moment a little girl's touching song transformed a lonely CEO's life forever. Noah Linton, a 38-year-old CEO of a booming tech startup, stood out among the throng of busy Silicon Valley innovators. He strode confidently, dressed in sleek designer clothes, a digital revolution in his mind. Yet, his heart felt heavier than the latest gadget he had just released. Each step through the bustling streets only deepened the weight in his chest. In a world pulsing with endless innovation, he felt like a ghost among the living. As he wandered through a neighborhood park seeking momentary solace, he caught sight of a small crowd gathered around a makeshift stage. Drawn in, Noah leaned closer. A little girl named Lily, no more than 8, gripped a microphone tightly, her voice cutting through the chaos like a beacon. She sang sweetly about family and togetherness, her lyrics swirling around him like a forgotten melody. Each note echoed his regrets, stirring emotions he had buried deep under board meetings and quarterly profits. Was this the price he paid for ambition? Noah's vision blurred as he remembered the family dinners he sacrificed, the holidays spent in the office, the unanswered phone calls to his parents. He could feel his stomach tighten as Lily's song resonated, juxtaposing innocence with the burdens he wore like armor. A single mother standing by the stage reflected a life colored by relentless struggles, a stark contrast to his glossy achievements in the corporate world. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Determined to act, Noah approached Lily and her mother after the performance. Offering mentorship, he felt a spark ignite. Here was an opportunity to connect, to create change. Teaching Lily about music felt like guiding her towards a brighter future. Yet, with each interaction, his internal struggle intensified. Torn between the demands of the startup that thrummed loudly in his mind and the budding relationship that tugged at his heart, he faced an excruciating choice. The financial metrics of his success loomed menacingly, whispering that time spent on family could be better spent climbing the corporate ladder. As he immersed himself deeper into the mentorship, a sense of belonging began to flourish within him, mixing with the haunting shadows of betrayal creeping closer. A trusted colleague had begun to undermine him, feeding doubt into the very foundation he built. The very ambition that had once driven him began feeling like a noose tightening around his neck. Caught in a whirlwind of competing desires, Noah felt the pressure mount, a ticking clock reminding him of the precarious balance he had to maintain. Could he hold on to this budding connection while fending off the betrayal threatening to unravel his carefully constructed empire? He hovered on the edge, grappling with the gravity of his choices. Did success come at the cost of the relationships that should matter most? He watched Lily, her youthful hope juxtaposed against his crumbling ambition. Time stretched painfully as he wrestled with thoughts of his own family, the echoes of long-lost calls ringing in his mind. Just as clarity flickered, his phone buzzed violently in his pocket, an urgent call from his office, a gut punch tearing him away from this moment. Anxiety surged through him as he pondered what news awaited him, sending his heart racing with uncertainty. Noah's grip on his phone tightened as he willed himself to answer, the deep unrelenting hum of tension vibrating through him. He hesitated a heartbeat, forcing a breath into the crushing silence that followed the buzz. As he accepted the call, the voice on the other end broke through the fog in his mind. It was Sarah, the HR director, her voice teetering on the edge of panic. "Things aren't going well, Noah. We've lost a major client," she said, urgency painting every word. "The board is in a frenzy. They're expecting answers, immediate solutions, and we might need to reconsider the expansion plans if we can't turn this around." Noah felt the ground shift beneath him. Doubt mixed with dread, the weight of the company's future pressed down like a heavy shroud. He cast a quick glance at Lily, who was still beaming from her performance, oblivious to the dark storm looming in his mind. In that moment, the contrast cut deep. Lily's innocence reflected everything he had sacrificed for success, and now, that very success was hanging by a thread. "I'll handle it," he replied, forcing confidence into his voice, even as uncertainty churned in his stomach. After hanging up, Noah turned his attention back to the performance area, where laughter and music lingered sweetly in the air. He felt the poignant pull of mentorship beckoning him, yet the chaos of the office encroached in relentless waves. His instincts screamed at him to retreat back to work, yet the guilt over his absence from both business and personal life ground relentlessly. In this fracture between worlds, something stirred within him, a desire to reshape the balance. If he were to allow this mentorship to evolve, he needed to let go of the relentless pursuit that had driven him into isolation. Returning to Lily and her mother, Noah steeled himself. "Let us get started on your music," he smiled, trying to bolster his resolve, but inside he grappled with the looming threat of his company burning down from poor decisions. He hoped that by dedicating time to Lily, he could discover paths that needed tending in his own life. In mentoring her, perhaps he could figure out how to reconnect with his own dreams and passions, buried beneath layers of spreadsheets and stress. They started to work on song lyrics together, each word exchanged woven with the energy of possibility. The joy Lily radiated began to lift the weight off Noah's heart, making him realize how stifling his previous focus on profit had been. He found himself smiling more, laughing even, as they brainstormed songs filled with stories of hope and resilience. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of joy, a lightness invigorating him. But the other side of his life didn't wait. Just as he began to feel at home in this budding relationship, his phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from his competitor, Mark Rivers, a sleek predator in the tech industry. The message read provocatively, "I heard about your troubles. When you're ready to talk, I recommend you do it before it's too late." With his shoulders tensing again, Noah felt the walls closing in. The threat posed by Mark intensified the uncertainty churning in his mind. Balancing the needs of Lily and the turmoil back at the office left him scrambling. Could focusing on one mentor through music truly counteract the insidious machinations of competitors? As they continued creating a world of lyrics and melodies, Noah's mind spiraled. With each note, clarity drifted further and the complexities of his life deepened. He was caught in a storm, and soon, he had to face the reality that his decisions carried weight far beyond the boardroom. Yet, just as he lost himself in thought, he looked at Lily. She had finished writing a stanza, eyes shining with excitement. And that spark, that genuine burst of happiness wrapped around his heart, offered a fragile reminder of what he might lose if he let fear dictate his choices. As he watched her smile, a new feeling began to solidify within him, edging dangerously towards a larger confrontation and perhaps a defining moment. Noah's thoughts spiraled as he resolved to meet Mark. The timing felt crucial, perhaps even more so than the music. The internal struggle of prioritizing personal integrity against corporate survival loomed ahead like an oncoming storm, and he sensed a reckoning ahead that would change everything. Noah sat cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by scattered sheets of lyrics. The words seemed to float, capturing fragments of emotion he barely recognized. Lily was humming softly, engrossed in her creative process, blissfully unaware of the tempest swirling around him. Detached yet present, he watched her, grappling with his growing resolve to confront Mark Rivers. The disparity between the tranquil atmosphere and the turmoil in his mind was stark. Each strum of Lily's guitar resonated like a heartbeat, grounding him in the moment while his thoughts clamored for space. He had been convinced that focus and ambition were paramount, yet here, amidst laughter and music, he uncovered a different truth. It was connection that revitalized him. "Hey, Noah. What do you think about this?" Lily's voice sliced through his reverie, pulling him temporarily away from the omnipresent shadow of Mark. She turned the page, revealing a new verse shimmering with the rawness of adolescence. "It's beautiful," he said with genuine admiration. It was a reflection not just of her youth, but of hope, a stark contrast to the darkness encroaching in his life. Lily blushed, a slight smile curling her lips. In her unfiltered enthusiasm, Noah saw a way back to the joy he had forsaken, the desire to create and inspire. That organic energy, so fluid in her, sparked something dormant in him. In merging her guidance with her trust, perhaps he could redefine his own life. Regardless, he couldn't escape the pull of the corporate chaos. Mark's taunt echoed in his mind, invading the soothing ambience. He needed clarity on what Friday planet meeting might entail. The thought consumed him like a predatory shadow, ready to swallow his light whole. "Can we take a short break?" Noah suggested, sensing the weight of his thoughts. He needed to regroup, to strategize, to open a conversation that felt both crucial and conflicting. "Sure, I'll grab us some snacks," Lily chirped, bouncing off with the optimism that was her essence. Sitting in silence, Noah let the challenge of Mark's impending confrontation flood his mind. Deep-rooted in his psyche was the instinct to defend his territory, yet beneath that driven facade lurked crippling self-doubt. If he didn't maintain authority over his company, how could he respect himself? Shouldn't he prioritize proving his worth through victory over Mark's sneers? Yet another part of him whispered that true strength lay in adaptation, in opening avenues he had long neglected. Could he dismantle the walls he had built up meticulously around his ambitions? As Lily returned, her arms laden with snacks, a thought crystallized in Noah's mind. Before he represented the relentless ambition the board demanded, before he met Mark, he needed to harness the creative spirit igniting in him through this mentorship. If he were to challenge Mark with composure, he needed to ground himself first, focus on the things that made him feel whole. "Let us record it," he exclaimed suddenly, inspired. "This song deserves to be heard." Her face lit up, and she nodded enthusiastically. In that moment, a new idea solidified within him. While corporate ventures demanded shrewdness, this creative partnership with Lily required vulnerability. He could blend both worlds, leading not through strict ambition, but through genuine emotional investments. Fumbling with his phone, Noah set up the recording app. A mix of excitement and nerves buzzed within him. The contrast illustrated how both pursuits could weave together, how storytelling through music could serve as an anthem against his corporate battle. Maybe it could lead him to an unexpected strength. As their voices harmonized, the room transformed into a sanctuary shielded from the harsh realities outside. Lines blurred between mentorship and growth, music became their bridge, a means to transcend the demands of ownership and competition. Noah's worries faded as they embraced the rhythm of collaboration, and for a fleeting moment, he felt invincible. But just as they pieced together the last notes, his phone buzzed again, this time more incessantly, shrill with urgency. A notification lit up the screen, highlighting a sharp reminder, an upcoming meeting with Mark, just hours away. Tension returned, weaving through his veins as he wrestled with the spiraling conflict between his newfound hope and the impending confrontation. Noah took a breath as dread loomed, reminding him, a storm was poised to break. Making music affirmed his worth, yet what awaited him in the boardroom challenged that foundation. He sensed a battle ahead, not just against Mark's machinations but against his own deepest fears, needing to protect what was becoming vital in his life. The collision of dreams and reality beckoned. Would he choose to stand firm, blending passion with purpose? The path was splitting, and in the heart of his growing melody, he realized a defining moment lay just on the horizon, threatening to determine which direction his life would take next. Noah's heart raced as he stared at the glowing notification on his phone. He knew that in just a few hours, he would stand face to face with Mark Rivers, the embodiment of everything he resented in the cutthroat corporate landscape. The calm he found in music seemed frail against the looming storm of the meeting. He felt torn, the weight of his responsibilities pressing down harder than ever. What if I fail? The question crept into his mind, a lurking shadow that amplified his uncertainty. As he clicked the recording app closed, the sound of Lily's laughter drifted back into focus, momentarily pulling him from his anxiety. "Did you save the recording?" she asked, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Yeah," he replied, forcing a smile despite the chaos swirling within. "We should listen to it later." The truth was, that moment in their makeshift studio had awakened parts of him he had forgotten. It was as though the treble of the guitar had unlocked a deeper understanding of what mattered most: connection and authenticity over corporate victories. He pondered how he could channel that lesson into his upcoming confrontation. The rich aroma of the snacks she had brought flooded his senses, pulling him into the moment. There was comfort in simplicity, if only the boardroom felt as nurturing as this small space filled with creativity. "Hey, let's do something," he said, out of impulse rather than a structured plan. Before the meeting, why don't we go through some of the lyrics we just recorded? I want to bring that feeling with me. Lily's eyes sparkled at the suggestion. Absolutely. Music can be a shield, you know. As they dove back into the verses and melodies, Noah felt a surge of determination. The authenticity in Lily's music and her youthful optimism turned his self-doubt into inspiration. He breathed in the rich undertones of their collaboration, feeling more mentally prepared than he had moments before. Each note they played became a form of armor, reinforcing his resolve. Yet beneath that veneer of confidence lay the gnawing fear of impending failure. Each strum could scarcely drown out the echo of Mark's words, a disquieting mantra that insisted Noah's worth was tethered to his success in the corporate realm. Why do you write songs? He asked suddenly, breaking the rhythm. It was a question he longed to ask, reflecting on how her words flowed from a place of genuineness. It's my way of connecting, Lily answered. I want people to feel, to know they aren't alone. Isn't that what music is for? Noah swallowed, a lump forming in his throat. The superficial breed of competition he had reveled in jammed against the vulnerability woven into her melodies. The contrast was stark, and it held a mirror to his own journey. Could he deliver that same connection in the boardroom? Could he be genuine amidst the tension? As they delved deeper into the music, Noah began to envision not a battle against Mark, but a dialogue and opportunity to redefine his professional relationships with authenticity. Time blurred, and they were lost in their craft until Lily declared, "We should record it one more time." The thought excited him, and he quickly obliged, eager to preserve not just the song but the growth he felt burgeoning inside. Just as they prepped to record, another notification lit up his phone, a reminder of the meeting. Reality had pulled him back once more, and with it came the familiar dread. Noah, breathe, he whispered to himself, realizing the deeper fear wasn't of Mark's judgment but of losing this stirring momentum. The hour approached, and with it came the powerful question he had to answer: what was he willing to sacrifice? Peering at Lily, her unyielding spirit bolstered his own. The meeting wasn't just about defending his position, it would be about redefining what leadership meant for him. Could he mold the daunting boardroom into a space for connection, rather than competition? As they finished recording, Noah felt a pivotal shift. His once rigid understanding of success had cracked, allowing room for something more profound. The moment felt significant, yet storm clouds still loomed on the horizon. The time had come to face Mark, not just to defend his ego, but to redefine himself. How he would navigate this moment hung in the air, charged with suspense. Would he rise to embody the man he envisioned, merging vulnerability with ambition, or would the corporate tide sweep him back into shadows? Noah took a deep breath, feeling both exhilaration and fear. Choices loomed ahead, and as the melody of their new song faded, he felt the stakes rise. The meeting with Mark was imminent, and he was about to discover whether he could manifest the strength within himself in ways he never imagined. Noah stood outside the towering glass building, the sun glaring down on the polished surfaces and his own trembling hands. The weight of his decision pressed heavier with each passing moment, and he felt both excitement and dread coiling within him. The buzz of the city around him faded into a distant hum, leaving only the rhythmic thumping of his heart. He had prepared thoroughly, memorizing the key points of his proposal to present to Mark and the board. Yet, a dissonance thrummed in his chest, urging him to toss aside the rehearsed speech for something more authentic. What good would this strategy mean if he couldn't authentically express who he was? The thought clenched in his gut, weaving between his motives and the corporate persona he had crafted over years. "Noah, you have this," he murmured, channeling Lily's faith. That moment in their studio replayed in his mind the unfettered joy of creation, the resonance of connection. How easy it was to be vulnerable there, away from the corporate fray. He wondered if he could somehow bring that ease into the boardroom, a place filled with suit-clad egos and decorum. Pushing forward, he entered the lobby, where sleek marble and muted tones reflected the stark professionalism surrounding him. Every face he passed felt like a judgment waiting to happen, a reminder of their collective goal: maximum profit, strategic wins, decisive leadership. But Noah's internal dialogue had shifted. He now grappled with the contrasting ideologies of genuine connection versus competitive advancement. As he stepped into the elevator, he caught a glimpse of himself in the mirrored walls. The man looking back seemed both familiar and foreign, clad in tailored fabric yet burdened by expectations he didn't wholly agree with anymore. He focused on a single thought. Today was not just about him defending his career, it was about reshaping how he wanted to navigate this world. Emerging on his designated floor, the conference room loomed ahead, its massive glass doors marking the threshold between his present anxiety and the meeting that would define his future. With each step, he mentally rehearsed, but a new narrative began to emerge. Instead of thinking of the board as adversaries, he envisioned opportunities, a collaboration that would foster creativity and connection. Noah pushed through the door, and the immediate buzz of conversation halted. The room was stark, filled with glossy tablets and serious faces that scrutinized him the moment he entered. Mark sat at the head of the table, effortlessly exuding confidence and authority, yet Noah couldn't help but see the cracks behind that facade. He noted the edges of anxiety creeping into Mark's meticulously composed exterior, recognizing the universal nature of fear and pressure. "Thank you for meeting today, everyone," Noah began, his voice steady but tinged with a warmth unfamiliar to him within corporate walls. He sensed Mark's dismissive gaze ready to pounce, but Noah continued, "I want to propose not just a strategy for growth, but a cultural shift within our company." He paused, allowing his words to sink in. "We've spent too long measuring success in profitability alone," he continued, deliberately placing emphasis on the word success. "Ours should be a space where creativity can blossom, where individuals feel connected and valued." These words left Noah's lips lighter than he expected, and he felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this was indeed his moment for evolution, not just for himself, but for an entire team yearning for authenticity. The ensuing silence was palpable, marked by raised eyebrows and curious glances. Mark's expression hardened, but Noah pressed on, fueled by adrenaline. "We need to redefine what leadership means. It's about building relationships and nurturing innovation, not just enforcing bottom-line performance." As eyes shifted among the board, Noah saw not mere skepticism, but the hint of intrigue and opportunity to engage them in dialogue rather than debate. The energy shifted, a palpable tension broke, rippling into a constructive engagement. "Interesting perspective," Mark said, a hint of annoyance slipping through his typically politically savvy tone. "But do you really think that approach pays dividends?" "Yes," Noah replied, meeting Mark's gaze without flinching. "Because it's ultimately about the people who drive those profits. We have to invest in them first, foster a sense of belonging and a willingness to innovate." Each word felt more powerful than the last, fueled by the connectivity he had felt with Lily, transforming the focus from fear of judgment to a shared aspiration for success. The meeting evolved, discussions sparking animated exchanges. Ideas and hesitations bounced resiliently off the walls, creative energy pulsated. With every query and counterpoint, Noah found himself not just defending ideas but navigating toward a greater ambition, a shared understanding. However, as the meeting drew to a close, he could feel Mark's simmering frustration bubbling beneath the surface, and he braced himself for the onslaught he anticipated. The final confrontation loomed, with everything staked on his ability to hold his ground while seeking engagement over division. Would the tide sweep him back into the currents of competition, or could he remain steady in this transformative dialogue? The table sat heavy with decision as the atmosphere thickened. Noah had cracked the corporate surface, but what would he find beneath it, and would he be able to harness it for the change he yearned for? The tension in the room hung like a thick fog as seconds stretched into eternity. Noah sensed Mark's ire brewing beneath the polished surface of corporate decorum. The board members exchanged glances, some leaned in, intrigued, while others crossed their arms, apprehensive. Noah dug deep, feeling the pulse of the moment. He was no longer just presenting a proposal, he was negotiating the very essence of who he wanted to be in this world. Isn't it naive to think emotional connections can drive profits? Mark challenged, his voice steady but laced with thinly veiled criticism. Every great strategy must begin with numbers. Noah's heart thudded against his ribs, battling the urge to retreat to the familiar, factual justifications that had often silenced his creative voice. Instead, he took a breath, centering himself. "If we lead from a place of fear, valuing only quantitative results, we risk alienating the very people who make those numbers possible. His words gained momentum, fueled by urgency. When employees feel recognized and valued, they become invested in their roles, they innovate, they unite, they thrive. The air shifted, and for the first time, a flicker of consideration traveled across some of the board members' faces. Noah seized the opportunity, pushing forward. Imagine a workplace where collaboration isn't just encouraged but celebrated. A culture where every voice matters. He paused, grounding himself before continuing. This isn't just a theory, it's a proven model. Companies like Zappos and Google invest in their cultures, and they're seeing exponential growth without sacrificing employee well-being. Please, Noah, Mark interjected, a hint of sarcasm edging his tone. Did the numbers substantiate those claims, or are we just taking their word for it? The challenge was unmistakable, resonating with years of corporate cynicism. I believe the numbers tell a story, just as we tell stories. But we need to shift our narrative, he replied, pushing through the fatigue of doubt threatening to cloud his thoughts. We can't be afraid of introspection, of vulnerability, or of creating connections among our teams. It's about transforming our culture into a competitive advantage. The conversation started to spark new ideas. A younger board member cautiously voiced their alignment with Noah's vision, leading to contrasting viewpoints that emerged. The tension morphed into discussion. The walls of resistance began to crack, and the creative energy pulsed anew. Noah wasn't just holding his own, he was influencing the discourse toward collective aspirations. Mark's expression shifted, revealing flickers of uncertainty. Noah realized the battle being fought at the table was as much about Mark's own insecurities as it was about the proposed cultural change. He had spent years climbing a ladder built on traditional metrics of success. Could he truly be swayed to reassess the purpose behind it all? Let us talk about what truly motivates us, Noah suggested, weaving his voice into the rising energy. The truth is, every person at this table wants to leave a legacy. A legacy built on connection and meaning. Let us be the leaders who don't just chase profits but create an ecosystem where every individual, at every level, finds value and purpose. The board's density shifted. Eyes roved as conversations ignited around him, reflecting a gradual pivot from skepticism to contemplation. They were pondering the implications of his words, probing the depths of their values and motivations. Then Mark's voice cut through the growing discussions. And if we fail? He questioned, desperation creeping into his tone. If this cultural shift doesn't yield results? Noah felt the urgency tighten in his chest. What we risk failing at is the opportunity to create something impactful beyond profit margins. What if we redefine success to include fulfillment and connection alongside growth? Isn't that worth striving for? The weight of Mark's gaze seemed to falter, revealing more than just a CEO's stoic mask. There were flashes of vulnerability hidden within. The room held its breath, caught between a reactionary ethos and the progressive change Noah was proposing. Would Mark choose to cling to convention or embrace the whispered potential of transformation? And would Noah's core belief hold firm in the wake of such pressure, steering them into uncharted waters or retreating to comfort? Noah knew he was confronting not just the board's ideologies but the very fibers that shaped his professional identity. He had unveiled the importance of courage, and in the uncertainty of the moment, he held his ground. The climax built, heavy with the weight of a pivotal decision. As Mark shifted to speak, the very air vibrated with anticipation, ready to cement or upend Noah's vision. Would he discover the leader within himself? Or would he buckle under the pressure of expectation? Each heartbeat echoed a silent question: who would he choose to be next? Noah held his breath, his gaze locked onto Mark. It felt as though the room had contracted, the collective energy converging on their interaction. Mark's struggle was visible, a dance of thoughts etched on his face. Noah could almost see the gears turning in his mind, weighing the risk of reimagining tradition against the potential rewards of innovation. Let us assume for a moment, Mark finally spoke, his tone sterner, that we pursue this cultural approach. We invest significantly in emotional engagement. What if the outcome leads us into a financial downturn? How do you propose we explain to stakeholders why we altered our course? Noah felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Each word out of Mark's mouth was like a brick laid carefully into the wall he had erected around conventional thinking. But there was a growing inflection in Mark's voice that suggested a crack, a fracture barely visible but there nonetheless. This was more than a financial debate, it was a battle of worldview. What if we framed it differently? What if we communicated that the ultimate measure of success is not just numbers but the resilience and dedication of our workforce? The confidence in his voice surged inwardly. Noah could feel a shift in the atmosphere, as if he was guiding a ship out of a storm into clearer waters. If our employees' well-being translates into a better workplace, it will show up on our balance sheets, not as a sacrifice but as a testament to our leadership. Mark's expression was unreadable. Beneath his analytical exterior, there was a hint of curiosity, perhaps even admiration. Noah seized this moment, fully aware that he wasn't just advocating for a cultural shift, he was calling Mark into a new realm of possibility. Consider this, Noah continued, his passion undeniable. When leaders invest in their teams, they cultivate loyalty and a sense of belonging. The financial metrics we hold dear don't reflect the stories of dedication behind them. Stories of resilience and enthusiasm that cannot be tracked in spreadsheets, but that absolutely drive profits. A few heads nodded around the table. Small sparks of agreement ignited. Voices that had been cautious began to emerge, timid but hopeful. This was not only a vote for change, it was a manifestation of the connection Noah had long desired to cultivate within this group. As the discussions began to expand into practical implications, he felt a thrilling mix of hope and uncertainty. This was the threshold where his vision could either be fully embraced or cast aside. He still had to convince Mark. I believe that our greatest asset is our human capital, Noah pressed. Revamping our culture can yield creativity that encompasses every layer of this organization. Even if we stumble at first, it's a calculated risk we can navigate if we choose to be responsive and adaptive. Isn't there value in the legacy we leave behind, not only to ourselves but to every employee? We have the power to inspire, to lead by example. A long pause filled the space, vibrating with tension. The board members considered his words, their own values and fears reflected in their expressions. Noah's heart raced, failure lingered in the air, palpable yet countered by the surge of his conviction. Mark finally leaned forward, his hands clasped together in quiet contemplation, the very posture of a man deliberating a life-altering decision. For a fleeting moment, Noah glimpsed the potential leap of faith resting in Mark's hands, the risk reverberating through not only the organization but through his own acquired identity as a leader. Then let us put it to the test, Mark said, his voice no longer an indictment but a tether to the opportunity Noah had put forth. Let us create a pilot program, a smaller-scale initiative to gauge its effectiveness without compromising the entirety of our operations. If we fail, we'll learn. If it succeeds. He let the words trail, still pondering the scope of what might unfold. Noah exhaled, riding the wave of optimism that connected him with the room. Success is defined not just by outcomes but by the courage to evolve, he encouraged. The conversation veered into logistics, strategies, and assessments that felt vibrant compared to the previous discussions filled with resistance. Noah felt rejuvenated, inspired, his professional identity slowly reshaping amidst the collaborative spirit forming within the board. And yet, the underlying whirlwind of doubt trembled in his mind. Would they truly commit to this path? Would he be able to rise to the challenges this cultural shift demanded? As the dialogue unfolded, Noah found himself at an emotional intersection. The atmosphere, electric and vibrant, closed around him like a curtain, but the tension of the unknown remained. How would the journey ahead test his resolve? How far was he willing to go to drive this change? The stakes were high, and success was intertwined with vulnerability. He craved transformation not only for the organization but for himself. The question pulsed relentlessly, what kind of leader would he become once this change unfolded? And in that moment, amid visions of the possible future, he sensed another inevitable confrontation looming, one that would dig deeper into his soul and challenge every belief he held about leadership. Noah emerged from the boardroom, the weight of the decision lingered in his chest like a heavy shroud. He felt both exhilarated and unnerved, a strange cocktail of possibility mixed with the shadow of doubt. The pilot program was a leap, but each step forward felt charged with potential and peril. His hands trembled slightly as he gripped the edges of the conference room door. What if they failed? What if his idea, his vision for a more empathetic workplace crumbled under the weight of reality? His instinct screamed at him to retreat, to cling to the safety of established norms and practices. Yet, another part of him thundered with resolve. He had fought too hard to remain a mere cog in the corporate machine. He wanted to be a catalyst for change. As he navigated the corridors leading back to his office, Noah paused for a moment, looking out of a large window. The city sprawled beneath him, a mosaic of dreams and struggles interwoven in the hustle of daily life. In that moment of reflection, he realized how the challenges ahead mirrored his own personal journey. Just like the organization he aimed to transform, he too was on the verge of a metamorphosis. He remembered his first days at the company. Fresh out of college, he had been filled with ambition, eager to climb the corporate ladder. In those formative years, he had knelt beneath the weight of skepticism and fear, often sidelined during discussions. The echoes of doubt from others had been loud, his own insecurities feeding them. But as years passed, he learned to navigate the treacherous waters of corporate culture, rising silently while proving his worth one small victory at a time. Yet, his growth had come at a cost. He often sacrificed authenticity on the altar of professionalism, hiding the yearning for a deeper purpose. Now, as he turned back toward his office, he could feel that this was not just a new chapter for the company but a crucible for his own identity. What kind of leader would he be in this new journey? Would he let fear dictate his course, or would he embrace vulnerability, willing to show the cracks in his polished exterior? The conversation with Mark had ignited a long-dormant flame within him, a hunger for meaningful impact, not just accolades. He was no longer interested in being a mere figurehead. He wanted to instill a sense of empowerment within his team. Trust in their potential. Foster creativity that was overwhelmingly real. But could his coworkers envision this shift alongside him? Could they withstand the tremors of change without falling apart? Noah sat at his desk, feeling the familiar pulse of anxiety creeping back in. This was different from the boardroom debate. Here, he was alone, with only his thoughts to contend with. He needed to strategize how to implement this pilot program effectively and rally the employees behind him. He knew he required allies, a community driven not by fear but by a shared vision of what a vibrant organizational culture could be. His first action was to schedule one-on-one meetings with a few key team members, those who had shown signs of alignment with emerging ideas and concepts during previous discussions, those who shared his fire. He would ignite their passion first, let it burn brightly until it could no longer be contained. It was a calculated risk, but one that could potentially yield immeasurable dividends. There was a faint noise that registered underlining his thoughts. A small crowd gathered near the lobby of the building. Curiosity piqued, he stood up and walked over to the source. As he approached, he saw a child among a small group, perhaps no older than 8, singing with surprising grace to an audience of bemused employees. Her voice, fragile yet unwavering, filled the air with a melodic resolve that temporarily overshadowed the chaos of corporate life. Noah felt a tug in his chest, a bittersweet resonance with that youthful earnestness. She wasn't just singing, she was vulnerable. There was power in her expression. As her innocent notes floated through the lobby like a gentle breeze. Noah realized that this was what he sought for the workplace, an environment where every voice could rise, where every individual could contribute without fear of judgment. Just then, amidst the crowd, he observed the glimmer of hope reflected in the faces surrounding the little girl. Their stress visibly dissipated as they embraced the moment's sweetness. Noah took a step back, overwhelmed. His own leadership horizon began to rearrange. Was this a sign? A signal to deepen his commitment to fostering such emotional connections? The air felt electric around him, the sense of community palpable, while he grappled with a new realization. If a child could awaken hearts and attentiveness, then perhaps he too could learn the power of authenticity and connection. With renewed determination, Noah stepped back into the world of deadlines and projections, rethinking not just what it meant to lead an organization, but how to lead with heart. But as he resolved to transform both the how and why, a new unsettling thought niggled in his mind. Could he be brave enough to surrender to this journey of authenticity, risking not just failure, but the unveiling of his true self in the process? It was a path fraught with uncertainty, but it symbolized the potential for not just organizational evolution but personal rebirth. And as he walked away from the impromptu concert, one question loomed larger than all others: just how much of himself was he willing to stake on this transformative journey? The next morning, Noah entered the office with a sense of anticipation coupled with lingering apprehension. The sun had risen brightly, casting a warm glow over the sleek surfaces and sterile lines of the workplace. Yet inside him lurked a tempest of insecurities, unsure of how to harness the culture-shifting vision ignited within him. His calendar reminded him of the first one-on-ones, and as he prepared, anxiety tightened his chest. This was much more than an ordinary meeting. Each conversation held the potential to influence not just his colleagues but the entire organization. Would they understand? Would they share his vision or dismiss it as the latest corporate fad? He took a deep breath and reminded himself that vulnerability was the key to connection, but it also left him open to rejection. The first meeting was with Sarah, a rising star known for her innovative ideas but often constrained by the conventional boundaries set around her. As Noah entered the small conference room, he could see the flicker of curiosity in her eyes. "Good morning, Sarah. I'm really looking forward to this conversation," Noah began, striving to project sincerity. "Good morning, Noah. Me too. What's on your mind?" Her tone was warm but just slightly guarded. He paused, weighing his words, letting instinct guide him. "I believe we have an opportunity to reshape our work environment. I want to create a pilot program that encourages authentic communication and creativity." Watching her closely, he noticed her initial hesitation. The corporate landscape they inhabited had conditioned them to expect the status quo. But amidst that uncertainty, he sensed a spark flicker within her. Creative risks? I like the sound of that. But what if it doesn't work? The last initiatives like that fell flat, she replied, her voice wavering between enthusiasm and wariness. Noah felt the temptation to retreat into the safety of prepared speeches, to offer reassuring platitudes. Instead, he took a chance. What if we approach failure differently? Not as a setback but as a learning opportunity. What if we could create a space where we're encouraged to share those ideas, however wild? He watched as her expression shifted, the possibility of collaboration illuminating her face. "I think that could drive engagement. But it needs support from senior management too. If we're going to take this leap, they need to get on board." Noah's heart sank momentarily. The realities of corporate structure pressed down on him. The voices opposing change grew louder, but he steadied his resolve. This was the point of authenticity he wanted to cultivate. "Let us work together on how we present this idea. We need to create a narrative that speaks to what's possible, not just what's accepted." Their discussion flowed more freely, evolving from doubt to determination. By the end of the meeting, a plan had started to take shape, fueled by shared enthusiasm. As she left, he felt the weight lift slightly. This was more than a small victory, it was the beginning of something transformative. Next was Eric, a team member who often exuded cynicism in meetings. Noah braced himself, aware that this conversation could either dismantle or reinforce the budding excitement he felt. As Eric settled into his chair, Noah sensed an air of skepticism. "Eric, thanks for meeting with me. I want to discuss some ideas about fostering an empathetic workplace," Noah said, openness saturating his tone. Eric crossed his arms, expressions tight. "Empathy? Sure, sounds nice in theory, but in reality it's just not a priority. We've got quotas to meet." Noah leaned in, feeling the urge to convince him soften his hardened stance. What if there's a way to meet those quotas and cultivate our creativity at the same time? Wouldn't it make your job more fulfilling if your ideas were accepted? For a moment, silence stretched between them, heavy with contemplation. Eric's defenses gradually lowered, twinkling with intrigue. "I don't know. Sounds risky, Noah." "Risk brings reward," Noah replied, attempting to mirror Eric's skepticism with an inviting challenge. "If we can document our progress, our successes and failures, we can create a new paradigm." The conversation shifted toward Eric's trials and frustrations in his current role. How had the corporate norms stifled his creativity? They began to connect over shared experiences, a flicker of rapport igniting as they explored the possibilities ahead. As he wrapped up his meetings, Noah recognized the progress both in shifting perspectives and fostering new dialogues. Each interaction nurtured his desire to lead genuinely. But with every spark ignited, unease whispered in the back of his mind, doubt lingered. Would those moments of authenticity dissolve under the weight of conformity's inevitable pushback? That evening, as he mulled over the day's progress, a newfound tension brewed within him, igniting a question. Could he truly carve a place for this new ethos amidst the relentless clamor of corporate hierarchy? The road to change stretched before him, its twists and turns promising both growth and peril, and just as he began to feel the weight of that formidable reality, one thought punctured through it all. What would he do when the time came to confront the true antagonists of change? Noah stood before the expansive glass windows of his corner office, watching the city pulse with life beneath him. He had spent weeks nurturing the seeds of change he'd dared to plant, cultivating relationships, and opening the conversations that would challenge the status quo within the company. The energy he found in his mentorship with Lily and the alignment he had fostered with a few key team members shifted something profound inside him. Today was pivotal. It would either solidify his vision or crumble under the weight of traditional cynicism. The boardroom beckoned, the primary meeting to review the pilot program's results awaited. His heart raced, and memories of the faces he had intersected flashed through his mind. There was Sarah's spark of enthusiasm, Eric's cautious approval. They were not only colleagues but allies in his goal to transform the corporate landscape into one defined by connection and mutual support. Noah entered the boardroom, finding it filled with the same polished stone and understated elegance that had once made him feel small and vulnerable. Yet today felt different. Today, he was no longer just the numbers guy or the CEO pushing for market expansion. He stood as the advocate of the human spirit thriving within corporate confines. "Thank you for gathering today," he began, his voice steady and infused with a newfound conviction. "What we've undertaken in this pilot program is about more than numbers. It's about the real experiences that contribute to our success. Connection fosters creativity, and creativity leads to enhanced performance." As he presented the findings, he noticed the dimming skepticism in some of the board members' postures. Metrics showed an intriguing uptick in both employee engagement and performance alongside the cultural initiatives launched. Yet, as the discussion progressed, he recognized the tension still simmering, particularly from Mark, who wore his wariness like armor. "The preliminary data is promising," Mark interjected, tone still sharp, "but what about the long-term implications? We have stakeholders to answer to. We can't risk failing by placing too much emphasis on this so-called cultural shift." Noah smiled, presence calm amidst the rising tide of contention. "If we create an environment where employees feel acknowledged and valued, we cultivate loyalty. Loyal employees drive productivity not just for the present but for a sustainable future. Isn't that worth investing in?" For a moment, silence enveloped the room as board members exchanged thoughtful glances. They had witnessed the tremors of change flicker across the corporate landscape, seen organizations fall when lacking a cohesive culture. Therein lay not just a battle for profit, but a struggle for relevance in a rapidly evolving marketplace. Mark's eyes narrowed, both impressed and irritated. "Are you willing to put your career on the line for these unmeasurable outcomes? If we fail, it's your name that will be stained." Noah took a deep breath, grounding himself in the very essence of the journey that had led him here. "Then I'll take the risk, Mark. Because success isn't only a number, it's the legacy we choose to create. Isn't that what we all wish to achieve?" With that, a shift rippled through the room, like the first breath of fresh air after a long, hot day. Seeds of doubt began to fall away. The discussion flowed as they began to brainstorm methods of enhancing the pilot program further. Conversations built around emerging team dynamics, exploring the foundational changes each person yearned for. Noah felt a warmth blossom within him, an authentic connection solidifying between him and the board, their shared aspirations evident. This was not just his initiative, it was becoming a united vision. Days turned into weeks, and Noah continued to ride on the waves of progress. The pilot program flourished, showcasing how the new cultural ethos directly correlated with increased productivity and overall job satisfaction. This was not merely a victory over numbers, it was the realization of a collective journey where creativity burgeoned. However, as he celebrated the victories, Noah couldn't shake the anxiety that clung to him. How would they sustain this momentum? These were but initial successes. How could he ensure they took root in organizational philosophy? In the quiet moments of reflection, he returned to the image of Lily, that innocent, fearless child with a voice that sparked so much joy. One afternoon, as he gathered insights to prepare his next presentation to the board, he found himself standing on the same makeshift stage in the park where he had first heard Lily sing. Surrounded by people sharing their dreams, the atmosphere brimmed with possibility. They reminded him that this journey was not solely about profit margins but about harnessing the potential in every individual. You know, he whispered to himself, the most important measure of success is the legacy I'll leave through this shift. The realization hit him with clarity. He needed to incorporate the essence of that park into the corporate culture, the idea that growth thrives only when everyone's voice is acknowledged, that connection fuels creativity, and that, ultimately, well-being drives performance. Noah presented this renewed vision to the board, urging them to embrace continued transformation. Let us create ongoing engagement opportunities so everyone feels part of this shift. Let us hold space for every voice, every idea. Let us lead with authenticity, and build a reputation as trendsetters in our field. The response was overwhelmingly affirming, recognition shining in the eyes of his colleagues. They marveled at the personal growth not just of the organization but of Noah himself, no longer an isolated leader but a galvanized force at the nexus of connection. The culmination of his journey was not just about success within boardrooms, but rather echoing sentiments from that little girl, a reminder that every syllable had meaning and every relationship mattered. Noah moved with authority but lacked arrogance, confident in the evolution he had catalyzed. He had risen not just as a CEO, but as a leader guiding his company toward the light of connection, creativity, and compassion. In a resonating silence, he vowed to continue this journey, forging paths that others would walk, creating a lasting legacy fueled by empathy. This was the moment of true achievement, not just for him personally but for every individual who dared to dream, create, and connect. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us soar. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending, because your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion, a story of hope and courage in the corporate world. Don't wait even one more second to show your support.